In 1600, Amsterdam counted barely 60,000 inhabitants, a compact port pressed against water and sky. By the century's end, more than 200,000 lived within its expanding rings, making it one of Europe's largest cities. The harbour told the story first. An estimated 5,000 merchant vessels lay at anchor or passed through each year, nearly half of Europe's commercial fleet. From dawn to dusk, hulls creaked and rigging snapped as goods from 6 continents flowed inland. Spices from Java, sugar from Brazil, timber from the Baltic, porcelain from China, furs from Russia. The air smelled of salt, tar, and pepper. This explosion began with water. In the 13th century, fishermen built a simple dam where the Amstel met the sea. The settlement that formed around it took its name from that structure, the Amstel Dam. For centuries, it remained modest, shaped by tides and trade winds, unaware that its waterways would soon carry the weight of a global economy. The turning point came in 1585, when Spanish forces captured Antwerp, the commercial heart of the Low Countries. Almost overnight, the flow of capital, skill, and ambition shifted north. Waves of refugees arrived by road and river, merchants driven from closed exchanges, craftsmen carrying tools and techniques, Portuguese Jews escaping the Inquisition, French Huguenots fleeing religious violence. They brought money, international networks, and a hard-earned instinct for survival. Amsterdam responded not with walls alone, but with construction on an unprecedented scale. Over 3 decades, 4 vast rings of canals were dug by hand, carving order into marshland. Earth was hauled away in baskets, timber driven deep into the soft ground. Along these waterways rose tall, narrow houses, 4 and 5 stories high. Their stepped gables suggested wealth, yet behind them lay frugal interiors and narrow plots taxed by frontage. The city expanded outward in disciplined geometry, transforming refugees into citizens and wetlands into neighborhoods. What emerged was not accidental growth, but a carefully engineered urban machine built to absorb people, capital, and risk at extraordinary speed. At the city's symbolic center stood Dam Square, the place where water had first been restrained and power later displayed. Here rose the new town hall, completed in 1655, today known as the Royal Palace Amsterdam. Built in austere classical style, its vast stone mass projected confidence and permanence. Inside, marble galleries echoed with footsteps beneath paintings celebrating justice, trade, and civic order. In the Great Citizens' Hall, bronze maps of the known hemispheres were inlaid into the floor, allowing visitors to walk quite literally across the world Amsterdam claimed to command. This was architecture as political statement. The Republic, lacking a king, elevated its city itself into a monument. Outside, carts rattled over cobblestones, bells rang from nearby churches, and boats glided past the dammed river mouth. From elevated viewpoints, one could see canals radiating outward like arteries, carrying goods and information. The camera pulls back to reveal a city consciously staging its own greatness, announcing that this former fishing village now considered itself a global power, not by conquest of land, but by mastery of trade. A short walk from Dam Square stood the Beurs, the great exchange designed by Hendrik de Keyser, where the mechanisms of global trade became visible. Beneath its open arcades, merchants gathered daily, voices overlapping in dozens of languages as prices shifted with the winds. Here, shares of the Dutch East India Company were bought and sold, alongside news from distant oceans carried by returning ships. Pepper harvests in Malabar, conflicts in the Banda Islands, storms in the Cape Seas, all were converted into numbers, contracts, and risk. This was one of the world's first modern financial markets. Men traded not only physical goods, but futures, insurance, and speculation itself. Wealth could be created without touching cargo. At its height, the VOC operated thousands of ships and employed vast networks of sailors, clerks, and soldiers across Asia and Africa. The camera drifts through the exchange, lingering on ledgers, quills, and anxious faces. In these crowded arcades, capitalism took recognizable form, abstract yet powerful, shaping decisions that would echo across continents. Beyond the exchange and the marble halls, Amsterdam's prosperity rested on harder ground. Along the docks, under low grey skies, labourers rolled barrels and hauled crates from dawn until nightfall. Sailors crowded taverns near the quays, spending wages earned at terrible cost. Nearly 1 in 5 men who sailed for Asia never returned, claimed by disease, storms, or violence in distant ports. Their names vanished, their bodies scattered across 3 oceans. The same ships that carried spices and porcelain also transported enslaved people, binding Amsterdam to systems of coercion far beyond Europe. The merchants who commissioned portraits from Rembrandt also financed wars of conquest in the East Indies. Freedom within the city was inseparable from unfreedom elsewhere. The camera shifts low, following bare feet on wet planks, hands scarred by rope and salt. Bells ring, gulls cry, and a ship departs slowly into mist. Amsterdam celebrated tolerance and opportunity, yet its wealth was unevenly born. This tension between civic pride and global exploitation lay at the heart of the city's golden age, shaping lives both visible and deliberately forgotten. Still, they came. Young men from Friesland and Gelderland arrived with little more than letters of introduction, hoping the city's currents would carry them upward. Refugees from war-torn German states followed, as did Jewish families seeking a fragile safety denied elsewhere. Passing beneath gates marked by the Republic's flag, they entered a city loud with possibility. Amsterdam was polyglot and restless. On a single street, 20 languages mingled with the sound of carts and church bells. Fortunes rose and collapsed within a season. At dawn, the Vismarkt came alive. Barges slid in heavy with herring and cod from the North Sea, decks slick with scales. Buyers leaned close, fingers pressing flesh, voices sharp with bargaining. Barrels, nets, and wicker baskets crowded the quays as fishmongers fed tens of thousands each day. Commerce here began before sunrise, long before marble halls opened their doors. The camera tracks low across wet stone, catching steam from breath and water alike, revealing a city sustained as much by daily labor and food markets as by distant oceans and abstract finance. Across the canals of the Dutch Republic, scenes like this repeated themselves daily, binding the city together through water. Wooden footbridges arched gently over narrow channels, their railings worn smooth by generations of hands. Washerwomen worked from floating platforms, beating linen against planks, while barges slid past within arm's reach. Tall merchant houses lined the waterways, their brick facades rising straight from the waterline, each gable a quiet record of trade, inheritance, and risk. The canals were streets as much as water, carrying people, goods, and refuse with equal efficiency. Just beyond the western ramparts, life unfolded along the route toward Haarlem. Drawbridges crossed the defensive moat, lifting and lowering with practiced rhythm. Windmills turned steadily in the open fields beyond, sawing timber, grinding grain, draining land. Farmers, fishermen, and travelers paused at the water's edge before entering the dense city within. The camera pulls back to show countryside and city in a single frame, revealing how Amsterdam's power depended not only on global reach, but on its constant negotiation with the land and people surrounding it. Approaching from the south, travelers crossed open fields and canals before reaching the city's formal threshold. The Leidseport, completed in 1664, marked this transition with ceremonial clarity. Its ornate stone facade signaled that one was leaving the rural Netherlands and entering a metropolis at the height of its golden age. Barges drifted slowly along the moat, reflections trembling in the water as windmills turned beyond the walls. Thousands passed beneath this gate each year, carrying produce, tools, letters, and ambition. Deeper inside the city stood the Waag, once the fortified St. Anthony's Gate. Built in the late 15th century, it had guarded Amsterdam's southern approach. By the 17th century, its military purpose had faded. The structure became a weighhouse and guild center, anchoring a busy market square. Small craft crowded the harbor basin beside it, unloading goods to be measured, taxed, and traded. The camera circles the tower, revealing how medieval defenses were absorbed into commercial life, transformed into engines of regulation, order, and profit at the city's core.